Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my dear candidates and viewers out there. We are still continuing to have our lessons of social studies, and we are still under the topic of vegetation. Last time we handled Mediterranean vegetation. We talked about temperate vegetation. So today still would like to continue with another type of natural vegetation. So this lesson is simply by a person you know, Peter. And I remember last time I gave you an activity to do. Maybe that is what we shall begin with and have a correction. But our correction is going to be a bit today different from what we have been giving. I'm going to guide you on how you do handle the corrections best by your own self. So it is a continuation of vegetation. We are going to have the questions only. I don't have the answers there, and I would expect you to open our last topic, our last subtopic, and then we handle the corrections. So our first question last time, as you can read, was what names given to the temperate grasslands of South Africa. Now, go to temperate, the subheading temperate vegetation, and then you look at the statement and the name we gave to that, and definitely you are going to get velds. Question number 2, state 2 conditions that favor the growth of velds in South Africa. So you go to that subtopic, the heading which was saying conditions that favor the growth of velds, and then you pick 2. I'm sure you have it in your book. Number 3, we said give any 2 characteristics of the velds. So you go still the characteristics, that subheading characteristic of temperate or velds. Then you pick any 2 and check with what you put. That is exactly how you are going to do a constructive corrections. Number 4, name any 2 economic activities carried out in the temperate regions of South Africa. So go to the economic activities as we saw it. Then I would expect you to pick the economic activities that you saw, and we had rearing cattle, rearing goats, and remember we also talked about the rearing of merino sheep for wool and the rest. All are there with you. Now I would like you to get ready for this activity. I have 4 or 3 points to make. 1, you must be able to write neatly, because it is always one of the instructions we are given by UNED. You have to write your words with the correct spellings. Then the next one, you also have to make sure that you space the words correctly, and don't forget correct word spacing. If you do that, your work will be neat and you will have no problem with any exam that will come. Thank you for these corrections. I think we are going to begin with some vocabulary that we are going to use during this lesson, and this vocabulary is what we are going to have. We are going to check. You can pick your pen, pick your book, and then begin. Write for me the following words. Word number 1 is mangrove. Mangrove. Word number 2, sheep. Sheep. The sheep of water transport. Word number 3 is timber. Timber. Word number 4 is waterproof. Waterproof. Word number 5 is boat. Boat. And lastly, we have marsh. Marsh. So thank you very much for checking that and writing that vocabulary, let's go through and see what you have written, whether it is correct. If it is correct, good. If it is not correct, you are going to correct it using the following. So our first word was mangrove. That is actually how it is supposed to be written. Though many people double O, that is wrong. We have sheep. That was what I was meaning. I know there are some who have written the other sheep, the animal. Word number 3, we have timber, as you see. That's our word number 4, correctly. Word number 5 is waterproof. Waterproof, remember, it is one word. If you have put there a space, then definitely correct it. Then word number 5 is boat. Boat. Then word number 6 is marsh. Thank you for that correction. Award yourself 6 marks if you have got all. And if you have not got all, please make a good correction and we move ahead. So for today, I want to welcome you to our next lesson. Actually, is going to have all the words that you have seen there, and we are going to handle mangrove vegetation or mangrove swamps. We have mangrove forests, mangrove vegetation, you can use like that, then mangrove swamp vegetation. And we want to see, where do we find it? This type of natural vegetation grows in the salt marshy lands in the coastal areas of East Africa, coastal areas of Africa. I have given you in East Africa, there is also, we also have mangrove forests. Then in the other parts of Africa, like West African coasts, you shall find. But what I want you to note is that it grows in coastal areas, some coastal areas. Not all of the coast of Africa has this, but I have said grow in salty marshy lands in some coastal areas. So we are going to look at that. Now, when you look at that word, salty marshy lands, which means the areas where those forests or those swamps grow must have that condition that the area should have salty, marshy waters or the lands. We also want to look at the conditions that favor the growth of mangrove forest. When you look at that, the conditions, you may find one of it is salty, muddy, and wet coastal areas. So the water actually in that area has to be salty and then muddy to form something like the swamp areas. Swampy areas are ever muddy, and then wet areas, but only at the coast. Because sometimes they can say, name the common vegetation found at the coastal areas of East Africa. The moment you see the coastal area, they are trying to ask you for the mangrove forests. Okay. So we want to look at the conditions that favor the growth of mangrove forests. That is exactly what we want to see. So which conditions must prevail in an area so that the area develop or grows such forests? One, we say that salty, muddy, and wet coastal areas. So that is one of the things that has to prevail in an area. We also have high humidity. High humidity, meaning there is a lot of water vapor. Remember, these are coastal areas with the large water bodies and with the high evaporation rates causing high humidity in the area. We also have high temperatures. Remember that the coastal areas are at a low altitude. Therefore, their temperatures are always very high. Last year, the PLO equation asking why the coastal areas have high temperatures. It was simply meaning they are at a low altitude. So those conditions are the ones that must prevail or that prevail in the coastal areas and favoring the growth of mangrove vegetation, mangrove forest, or mangrove swamp vegetation. We want to look at another thing yet, and that is the characteristics of mangrove forests. How are these forests? How do you identify that this forest is like this? So one, we have that the mangrove forests are evergreen. Remember, they grow in waterlogged areas where they have water throughout. So this one keeps the trees to become evergreen. We also have that trees have broad leaves. And remember, telling you that when a tree has got enough water or rainfall, receives enough water for it to live, it will grow as huge as it wants. So in the mangrove forest, the trees have broad leaves. Those are very large leaves because they get enough water for survival. We also say mangrove trees develop aerial roots. Just soon after we have finished the characteristics, we shall look at the aerial roots and look at how the forests look like. And we see that they develop these aerial roots, these roots that come outside and then support the plant in the soft areas. We also have the vegetation is thick and impenetrable. Actually, the forest becomes thick and it is not easy to go through in that area. We also say trees take long to mature because they have enough water, they grow. For them, they take long to mature and therefore they will provide for us. Trees or the mangrove trees produce the hardwood. Remember, the trees that take long to mature, they always result giving us the hardwood. And here, there is this particular point that the mangrove trees produce hardwood, waterproof timber. Actually, that full stop wouldn't have been there. That one after the word wood, but we say hardwood, waterproof timber. When we talk of waterproof, it means that it does not allow water actually to go to the other part of the timber. We also want to look at forests grow parallel to the coast. What do we mean? That they go just following the coastal areas. As the coast runs, that is how those trees also grow. They don't come outside, but they must grow within that coastal area. That's why we don't get mangrove trees or mangrove forests in the inland areas, because they might not be having the conditions that we looked behind at this board. Let's look at another thing that we want to see. We want to look at how do these forests look like. Here, I know my picture may not be so clear, but I want you to look at how dense, how thick that forest is. And actually, the other side is quite clear. Here, in the downer part, we see what we call those roots, the aerial roots that grow to support that plant. So actually these trees, these forests are the ones that give hardwood, waterproof timber. They're found in the coast of East Africa, around Kenya, Tanzania, and other coastal areas of West Africa. So you can look at them and then compare. So when we say it is the thick or impenetrable, meaning you can't easily go through them, like as you can see from the board there. We want to look at the importance of mangrove forests. How are they important at the coastal areas and the countries where they are? We have one that the mangrove trees, as you see, the mangrove trees provide hardwood, waterproof timber that is suitable for ship making used in water transport. Actually, those people who can build the ships, that are used in water transport, in oceans, in seas, and other large water bodies, they benefit a lot from the mangrove forests. We are saying that because the hard wood is waterproof, therefore, that makes it suitable for making the ships that are used in water transport. So sometimes here they can ask you that how do mangrove forests promote water transport? Mangrove forests provide hardwood waterproof timber used for making or building ships that are used in water transport. So that's how important it is. We also have that the forests, as you saw from the diagram, you saw that these forests are thick. They possibly help in rain formation in the areas where they are found. We have that the mangrove trees still provide hardwood timber for making boats used in fishing activity. Here at this point, I want you to take two keywords or two major points. Point number one, that why is the hardwood timber from mangrove suitable for shipbuilding? Why is mangrove hardwood timber suitable for shipbuilding? The best answer is the timber is waterproof, or mangrove trees provide hardwood waterproof timber. That is why it is suitable for that. Then you also come and say mangrove trees providing hardwood timber for making boats used in fishing activity. They can also ask you a question and say that in which one way can the hardwood timber from mangrove forests or trees promote fishing activity? They provide hardwood timber for making boats, used in the fishing industry. We also want to look at the roots of the mangrove forest trap mud. Remember we said aerial roots, and those aerial roots are always rough. They are always rough, they are hairy. So whatever is taken, the downpour, and washed to the sea or the coastal areas, these roots have to trap mud and silt in the coastal lowlands, hence keeping the coastal area or coastal water clean. So that's why what they play, they support the tree. They also have that ability to trap all whatever has been eroded and taken there, the silt and the rest, and you will find that when you go, you see water clean. Otherwise, that water would remain very dirty, but they play a very big role. So we also have activities that take place in that. Here we are looking at boat making. This gentleman here is using the hardwood timber to make boats, and that hardwood is got from the mangrove trees. Then we also have another gentleman dancing there. He's also very busy making boats. So in case they ask you how mangrove forests promote fishing industry at the coastal areas, they provide hardwood timber for making boats used in fishing activity. Then we also say that this very timber, hardwood timber, is waterproof and is used in shipbuilding. So you will find that this is our shipbuilding activity. Very big thing. Do not think that it is metallic only. Some parts though may have the metals, but they still benefit from the other hardwood waterproof timber which they use for making those large vessels. So we had just seen the boat making and then the shipbuilding. Those are the activities that are commonly done with the mangrove timber. When we move to the next areas where we can find that, we shall find it at East African coast, in the coastal areas of Kenya and Tanzania. Remember in my opening, I said they may ask you to mention an area where you can find the mangrove forests. Look at East African coast, in the coastal areas of Kenya and in Tanzania, that is in the Indian Ocean. We also have West African coast. Remember the map that we drew about vegetation, you have it. So that map, you can keep referring to where these natural vegetation zones are located. We want to look at another thing, our lesson activity. Are you able to answer the following questions for me? Before we go to the lesson activities, let me run through very fast with this. I want to run through our lesson for a minute. When we look at this, we said they are found the coastal area, some coastal areas of Africa, then the conditions that favor, we have salty, muddy, and wet coastal areas. We also have high humidity areas, and then the areas with high temperatures. We have just looked at the characteristics, and we shall go through now. We have mangrove forests are evergreen. We also have trees having broad leaves, as you see. We also have mangrove trees developing aerial roots, as we saw in our diagram. And then the vegetation is the thick and impenetrable, and mostly trees. We also say that the trees take long to mature, and the mangrove trees produce hardwood waterproof timber. And remember what I have just told you about this hardwood waterproof timber and the sectors that they can help to develop. Then forests grow parallel to the coast. We move to the mangrove forest areas, as you saw like that. Those are the mangrove areas, the mangrove swamps, as you see. We have the other side and this side. We also have the importance of the mangrove forests, mangrove trees providing hardwood waterproof timber. Do not forget that's a common question that is suitable for ship making, used in water transport. Why is that hardwood suitable for ship making? It is suitable for ship making simply because it is hard and waterproof. We moved to the next one and said help in rain formation, because these are forests. We also say mangrove trees providing hardwood timber for making boats used in fishing activities. How actually do they promote fishing activity? They promote fishing activity by providing hardwood timber used for making boats. And which boats are used in fishing activities? So the roots, as you saw, that they help to trap mud. We are running through. We saw the activities. One, we saw boat making in those areas. All that these are all products from mangrove forests, and those gentlemen are now about to finish their duties. Then we also saw the shipbuilding activity, which is benefiting from the other hardwood and waterproof. We have another thing, areas in East Africa, East African coast, in the coast areas of Kenya and Tanzania. We also have West African coast, and then we now come to our lesson activities. Make sure you will follow the notes, read through them before you answer the question. This is not an exam. You must actually be able to identify a question from what we have learned. Number one, that mention any one condition that favors the growth of mangrove forests. In our notes, we have conditions that favor. Go and pick any one. Two, give any two characteristics of mangrove forests. Just some few minutes, we had the heading characteristic. Actually, go to the heading, pick the two characteristics, and bring and fix it there. We also have, why is the hardwood timber from mangrove forest best for shipbuilding? I have just emphasized that point very well, that you can be able to answer that question. We also have number 4, how do mangrove forests at the coast of East Africa, at the East African coast, promote the following? How do they promote a fishing activity? I have also emphasized that. B, water transport, and I have also emphasize that. So for today, I think that's where we shall end with our lesson. I would like to say stay safe until we meet. We shall continue with our learning next time. Thank you.